This is hands down the best country on the planet. Okay, and it's so funny when people complain about everything that's wrong in this country, and I think to myself, I'm like, you have no idea.
Welcome to the American Dream Builder and Investor podcast, where our vision is to inspire busy professionals, especially first and second generation immigrants and Americans, to explore the state of the American dream in 2022 and beyond. That is the Trinity of Freedom: time, financial, and geography freedom. I'm your host, Missy Liu, and I have achieved financial independence, and I'm helping many others to do the same. I started out with $5,000 and have really built wealth for my family along the process. Now, I am on a mission to help hundreds of thousands of people like me to do the same. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the American Dream Builder and Investor podcast, where our vision is to inspire first and second generation immigrants to pursue the Trinity of Freedom: time, financial, and geography freedom. Today, we have a special guest with us today, Omar Khan. And I just want to tell you a little bit about Omar. We met through acquaintances in the real estate syndication space, but there's so much more to his story. He is the founder and principal at Boardwalk Wealth, a Dallas-based private equity firm connecting international investors with U.S.-based multifamily real estate opportunities. He himself is actually a first-generation immigrant from Canada. And led by Omar, Boardwalk Wealth has managed over $350 million of multifamily real estate transactions, and he personally has advised on $4.0 billion in capital financing and mergers and acquisition transactions in the commercial real estate space and commodities. He is also the exclusive advisor for high net worth families and international entrepreneurs on their U.S.-based real estate portfolio allocations. As a CFA charter holder, Omar also has extensive experiences in valuations across commodities and real estate in 3 countries. So Omar, you have definitely a stellar bio, and I can't wait to dive into those details with you here. And for this podcast, I think it'd be really interesting to talk about your first generation immigrant story and how you pivoted from finance to real estate, which is also finance related, and just being more of a wealth advisor, wealth beyond real estate as well. So tell us a little bit about your story of coming to the U.S. and this international wealth building experience.
Yeah, look, my story isn't as glamorous as some of the other people. I grew up in Pakistan. I went for college to Canada, stayed there, job, and then I moved down to the U.S. So basically, my dad went to school in Berkeley. We have tons of friends, family friends in California, and as a family, we travel a lot as children. So we had a very good upbringing by the grace of God. We were very privileged. We'd come to the U.S. multiple times. I grew up in a healthy culture of Americana, basically. So when I finished college, I thought I'd probably go back to Pakistan, work within the family business and stuff. But I decided to stay back. That's another long story. And, got a job at RBC, which is the Royal Bank of Canada. I think it's a top 10 financial institution. So worked with them, got great experiences, worked at another asset manager, then went to oil and gas M&A in Calgary from Toronto, because I was in Toronto. I was poached by an old boss of mine. And great experiences there within both the sell side, which is investment banking, equity research space, as well as the buy side, which is, work for a company, work for a fund, and you've got to take decisions on, okay, what to buy, how to operate these things. Because when you're on the sell side, you're an advisor, right? So you basically, for the lack of a better word, you get paid when you do a deal. It's like, hey, we get paid a salary, but really, the way they get paid is a commission-based structure. So, right? You have to bring in a certain amount of business. But when you work on the buy side, which is you're essentially the owner, right? If you're a company, you work for a fund. So there you have to look at a different set of variables, right? You've got to look at, well, is this a strategic buy? Is it a financial buy? How do you look at this when you acquire something? Well, how do you operate it? How do you integrate all of those things? So I was very lucky to have both sets of experiences at an early age and have great mentors along the way, right? Because so many people have been so kind to me over the years that they opened doors or provided the right advice at the right time. And, a lot of times in our lives, we don't need big movements. We just need the right word at the right time so we can pivot, right? So for me, I'm the lucky recipient of all that nice things that people have done. And about 2015, around 2014, I met my wife. 2015, when we were getting married, we kind of decided, my wife was in the US, by the way. She's a physician. She was finishing up her residency. So, it was a toss up. Does she move up to Canada? I moved down to the US. we kind of just flipped a coin. And I decided, oh, all right, I'll move down to the US. It's a great country. I travel there frequently. So we moved to Texas. But again, there was never really any big intention of, say, being in real estate or being in business. It's just that I always knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. My family is a business family. So, maybe that's some of that is there, right? But for me, luckily, I had very great set of experiences. I'm a CFA charter holder as well. So that's like the gold standard in finance and portfolio management. So I had personal good relationships and networks, I had professional networks. And for me, basically, the big impetus was realizing that, whatever we do in the future, I wanted to be in a relationship driven sort of industry, number one, right? And number two, I wanted it to be very tax efficient because I realized very quickly, I think we were 30 and we just did the rough math and realized, look, if we don't even get any raises after this in our whole lives, and if you think about it, we're kind of at the start of our careers, right? Even if we just saved on taxes, we were probably going to be saving a couple of $100,000 a year. And a lot of high income professionals, they realize they're paying taxes, but they don't really necessarily take the next step and realize, well, that's the math. This is how much money. So I was like, look, I've got a great set of experiences, but this tax situation is killing me now. So if we keep working and hopefully we keep going up the corporate ladder, she's a physician, she keeps doing whatever physician people do, right? This problem isn't going to solve itself. In fact, every year it's going to become worse because the more you make, the more taxes you pay, right? So for me, when I started looking at it from that perspective, a lot of roads led to real estate, right? And that's basically what I did. I never bought houses or anything of the sort. I never wanted to buy houses. Didn't really care about them. It was just direct to commercial and multifamily. And from there on end, I've been very lucky. I have good partners, I have good investors, and we've been able to, do excellent deals, make a lot of money for people and keep everybody happy.
Thank you for sharing that story. A lot of good nuggets that you just shared. I think one of them was about the abundance mindset. Essentially mentioned it's really about having the right people, being at the right places for things to happen, for you to pivot. And when you were speaking, you weren't thinking of the constraints. I love how you were being so abundant about what you can have and where you can be. So that's awesome. And what you mentioned, the tax issue is definitely a issue that can be solved with tax efficient investments. So it's great that you pivoted into the real estate syndication space. So since you had somewhat of the entrepreneur experiences and you pivoted more into the real estate, commercial real estate, was it difficult still to start with? What were some of the roadblocks at the beginning and how did you overcome that?
I think it's always difficult, right? Because at each stage, a new set of challenges presents itself, right? So whatever stage you're in, if you're growing, you want to grow, each stage has challenges, right? So people that are way above me in experience or skill, well, they have their own set of challenges, which if I look at them now, I'd be like, holy crap, I can never do those, right? I just have to get to that stage. So starting out, yeah, there's lots of challenges. But for a lot of guys that are coming from finance, coming from technical backgrounds like myself, that are analytical, we don't have very good marketing skills, right? I mean, our personal marketing skills can be good because a lot of us, people who've gone to good schools, work at good firms, we present ourselves nicely, right? But that's within a very narrow niche of people, like people who are in our line of work, as an example, right? But marketing is something that I'm learning. I still don't know enough about it, right? And that's a hard skill that I didn't have. I'm still learning it. And then putting that marketing team around me, which is still, by the way, in process, that was, to me at least, the biggest wake-up moment to realize, look, you can have all the skills in the world, but if you're not good at marketing, branding, none of this other stuff matters, basically. So that was a challenge then. And it's still a challenge now, right? Because it's not something that comes naturally to me. So, but like I said, at each stage, there is a
different set of challenges. Yeah. If you were to summarize your success and the success in your pivots, what would be the number one thing that has helped you grow?
Oh, I have been the lucky recipient of people's generosity throughout my life. So that is my number one thing. My number one skill has been people have been very generous.
That's very kind of you to say, but I'm sure it's also because of your track record and who you are as a person that people are willing to lend a hand.
I would like to think I'm the best looking guy on the planet. Not true. So this is the next best alternative, basically.
That's funny. So one thing that you mentioned is how you have advised over $4 billion in capital financing and mergers and acquisition, commercial real estate and commodities. That's prior to your syndication business, right?
That's combined basically across. Roughly, I've done about close to 500 million to 600 million market value of real estate assets, and the rest was in oil and gas and commodities. Basically.
I see. And how has the mergers and acquisition experience translated to your real estate side? And I'll expand on that question as well, because there's obviously the underwriting, dealing with financing, etc., they still have to deal with. But a lot of people feel could be a roadblock in understanding real estate is all the construction and understanding how that aspect worked. How did you approach that?
Well, having common sense really helps, right? Because, for instance, if you look, I mean, or having a general idea of how much things cost, as an example. Obviously, these are things you learn along the way, right? If you look at something and some guy tells you it's, I don't know, $100,000, and you obviously know it's not $100,000. Well, you have to push back and be like, okay, why is it 100? Right? So things like, for instance, getting multiple bids on every project, aligning yourself with market professionals, taking a professional approach in terms of both conservatism and how you structure the deal, finding the right people for the right seats. These are things that, for instance, look, I don't know every single aspect of what my firm does. And I mean, I know what the roles are and what they do, but my role isn't literally to go swing a hammer, right? On my developments, I mean, to date in my entire life, I've never swung a hammer. I don't plan on swinging a hammer anytime soon, right? My job is to make sure that we have the right people and the right team, and we have the right paths that we charted for ourselves. My job is to make sure that my people are happy, the team are happy, we're making the right decision. But day-to-day wise, I'm not going to go physically swing a hammer. I'll go do my lawyer's work, as an example. Assembling the team, and again, it's a work in progress, right? You just have to do it to learn it. There's just no other way around it. You just have to get over that. And if you don't do that, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah, partnering with the right people is definitely key. It's who, not how. It sounds like you did a lot of that. So how, I'm sure in this process you learned a lot as well. So what were some of the painful lessons you had to deal with? Because, it is a new area, you had to pivot. You relied on people, and maybe sometimes people aren't what they say they really are.
Common theme for a lot of people. Look, in my case, one really good aspect of working professionally in the firms that I've worked at, and I can say that's true for most people in those environments, right, is the fact that by the time you get out of these environments, especially if you've had these formative experiences in the 20s, look, whether you're a lawyer in a white shoe firm, you're a physician that's done residency, whether you're in investment banking or private equity, we get used these, and by the way, other professions, I'm just using a sliver of professions, right, that I know about, but other professions are similar. When you're used to working in top quality firms, you're used to coming and working at a certain intensity for a certain amount of time, at a bare minimum, right? Nobody's a B grade person. Everybody's class A, right? So when you bring a certain amount of intensity, very quickly you start realizing that not everybody can hack it, right? Your partners, like you said, can say one thing, but they can't really bring that level of intensity, right? And with this work, or any business for that matter, you need intense people, because things go in wrong, things go sideways, people bitch and moan, and you always have to course correct, right? So that set of personal experiences has really greatly helped me, because I've had multiple partners where I basically said, okay, you'll get your share of the deal, no problem, but just don't do the work because you're incapable of doing it. And how about I just take over, or my team takes over and we'll do the work, or we'll hire somebody who's more competent to do the work. But the fact of the matter is, those partners, we haven't really involved them in a partnership capacity again. But funnily enough, those partners still give me money, because they have seen that it's better to give me money, and then that money can multiply, and well, then they don't have to be involved. But they don't get the same cut of the deal. Partnerships and people issues they're very common, and you'll hear this story all the time.
This podcast is sponsored by Life Mission Capital, founded by me, Missy Liu, where my life mission is to help busy professionals invest well so they can focus on what matters. All my life, I was taught to study and work hard for my freedom, until one day I realized that unless I let my money work hard for me, I will always be trading my most precious resource, time, for freedom. Since then, we have also been helping our investors passively diversify into more than 1,000 units of recession and inflation-resistant alternative investments, such as multifamily, mobile home parks, short-term rentals, and more. Learn more with our free ebooks at lifemissioncapital.com. Yeah, it is for sure. And did you start out as co-sponsors, leveraging the skills they already have with some of the existing operators, and then moved on to more of sponsoring yourself?
I had a good professional and personal network. So what was the point of having a personal and professional network if I wasn't going to utilize it, basically? Yeah, and look, my experiences in capital markets, within debt, within equity, within operations, obviously help. Now, was I the same person 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago? No, I have also evolved. Our processes have evolved, but I was good enough to get the job done. Now, obviously, you can keep doing a better job because every person who has an abundance mentality wants to do a better job. I had a certain skill set. People in my team that have stayed around have a certain skill set, and we don't have to overcomplicate things, basically.
That's awesome. Leveraging existing skill set. And I think a lot of the successful entrepreneurs, one thing that I notice in common is they move with speed. They move with 70-80% of the information and continue to learn, pivot, and grow. So thank you for sharing your story on that. Yeah. And another thing, when I, just from our previous conversations that I found interesting is your multicultural background from Pakistan to Canada to US, and now you work with international investors and high net worth individuals. What are their typical profiles are like, and what are their common struggles typically in investing in the US?
I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of the folks that I know are people who don't have struggles, right? I might be the wrong person to ask a question about generally, like, who are the people in the world who have struggles, right? Most of the people most, if not all of the people I deal with already have money. They already have experience. The things oftentimes in our line of work, which is very important, like I mentioned at the start, is relationships. Relationship struggles, right? Because, for instance, I'm obviously not the only person on the planet that's in real estate, as an example, right? If you're, say, somebody who has a couple $1 million to invest every year, you're also not just looking at return, you're looking at your relationship to see, okay, well, if I give this money to this person, will this money take my money and run away? Or will this person be stupid and, kind of not allocate my money correctly and all of those things? So typically, what's most important, the same way investors are interviewing us, we're also kind of judging them. Hey, is this a good person for us to work with long term or not? Because you don't want to get into an issue with some person's a pain in the ass. And you're like, okay, dude, I'm not going to spend like my entire day just answering your questions. Look, I'll answer questions, but if you have nothing else going on in your life and I have a business to run, yeah, it's probably not a good fit, right? So a lot of times we've turned away investors. I get it, but maybe we're not a good fit for you, right? So for me, basically, most of the investors I have personally dealt with or am dealing with are typically people who already have some level of experience. They've already done deals before. So it's not like it's not like we're going from 0 to 1. You're already at 5 and you're going from 5 to 10. That's why a lot of these people typically don't have as many of, say, hurdles as one would imagine they would have.
I see. So when you're talking with them, I assume if they're international investors, they already have entities set up in the US to invest with.
We can just refer them to our CPAs or lawyers and they can take care of it.
I see. Got it. And what would they be the key things that they're looking for when they're looking at opportunities with you? One is the sponsor, their relationship with you. And what are some of the other things that are really highly valued?
I'm going to be honest with you. Most of the people I know, we are only in the relationship business. So the deals are the actual deal or the whatever development acquisition I'm working on, that is merely a byproduct of our relationship, right? So if you're a good you're a good person. Look, a lot of times, for instance, if I know a few of my investors and I know they have some upcoming, say, a kid is getting married or whatever, one of the guys was having a divorce. I actually didn't take the person's money, and I told them why. Because look, because I was a portfolio manager, right? CF is all about that, right? So the issue there is sometimes you have to be a good steward of your investors' capital, but also your relationship with the investor. Tell the guy or girl, hey, I don't think it's a good time for you to invest because in the next 6 months, your kid is getting married and you need another 200 grand for that, right? Your last 400 grand, and maybe you've got another 200 grand. That's not an adequate margin of safety for you. So for us, the deal isn't necessarily at least for our investors, that what they tell us, the deal necessarily isn't as important because by the time they've gone through the relationship, they found out about us, our team, our track record, that in and of itself should suffice. And if that doesn't suffice, the deal doesn't even matter. Because think about it this way. If you don't think, for instance, a person is a good match for you, right? Well, whatever. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the person. It's just not a good match, right? That's basically the way a lot of these people think. And to be honest with you, that's the way I think as well. So maybe I only get to meet or talk to people that think similarly, which is not always the best thing. So that might help also.
Yeah. I think it was you or someone who mentioned this to me, kind of stuck with me once. When investors are assessing the deal, really there's two things that you need to worry about. One is, can I trust this person, and are they capable? So
No, no, I said the rest of the stuff doesn't matter because if somebody has good character but is an idiot, that's a bad fit. Somebody is great character, but let's put it this way: somebody is awesome at what they do, but they're a Bernie Madoff type person. They're a robber. They're a thief. Well, why would you want to work with that person? You want to work with honest, competent people, and there's enough of honest, competent people in the world that you're not going to run out of good quality people to work with, basically.
yeah, the working experience is definitely important. So one thing you mentioned a lot in this conversation is building relationships. So how do you approach building relationships in general, especially in your line of?
Look, a lot of this is, I mean, first of all, if I knew the answer to this, I'd be a really rich person because I'd crack the code. A lot of this is, prior investors, they refer a lot of people. A lot of this is people who will listen to podcasts like yours and maybe reach out to us, right? And they get into our ecosystem, see what we do, and then if they like it, they'll reach out more and all of that sort of stuff. So a lot of this is more staying in touch with people when you don't need their money, right? As opposed to you only get in touch with somebody when you need their money. So, I mean, think about it. If you've got a friend, in quotation marks, who only reaches out to you when they need money, kind of weird, right? That person, the same level of that you would with somebody who stays in touch with you, even when they don't need something from you. Staying in touch with people without necessarily, hey, give me the money, right? Being a normal person, just staying in touch with people. And I like staying in touch with people. So, but again, if I knew the exact methods of how to do this, BC, I'd be so rich, you have no idea.
Yeah, I think relationships is one of the most valuable assets for sure.
I wish I knew the answer, but sadly, I don't know the answer.
And when it comes to investment, I think you did more multifamily to start with, and now you're focusing more on the build to rent space. Is that correct?
No. I've always done acquisitions and developments from the start. That's what we're doing continuously. We also have a restaurant fund which has no real estate in it. You get 12 to 13.2% cash on cash returns per year on it, right? Pure cash, because a lot of our investors, they have exposure to real estate, but they want cash, like cash heavy side. So that's for them as well. No real estate, great margins in that business. We own the operating company. We've got a great team there that I had, and we're doing really well.
That's interesting. Maybe it's a interesting way to look at it. Restaurant business, how do you assess something that's, especially when it doesn't include real estate? Business is valued similarly, but
our business does not include real estate. We don't buy the real estate. We don't want to buy the real estate.
So how do you evaluate investment opportunities in the space, especially when so many restaurants, they come and go, and on the big brands as well? It seems like such an area that you need to keep up with a lot compared to real estate housing. It's more of a necessity. And so how do you look at that?
Food is a pretty big necessity, Macy. I mean, you can live without your house. You can't live without your food. Franchise restaurants, right? A couple on the way, right? We've got a great operating team, and this is where you have to have a good team. So we have a very good team that's experienced in what they do. Everybody's in the right seat at the right spot, working with repeatable formula. So on the franchising side, because it's repeatable, we've got great margins on the business, and we've seen other people do it first. When we see other people do it, then we can copy them.
I see. So you worked with them as maybe passive investors, was JVs first?
No. Other people have their own businesses running. Think about a McDonald's franchisee, right? There are lots of McDonald's franchisees, right? They run good businesses. You see that business, now you get a McDonald's franchise. You see a Wendy's franchise, you see if that business is doing good, maybe you now get a Wendy's franchise. So I don't have to be involved with them. I just have to have a good operating team. We have our connections within the industry, and that's how we go.
I see. It's good that you apply similar methodology from the real estate and just financing space to the rest.
All businesses are exactly the same. You have to realize you've got to have a good team. And all businesses, whether real estate, restaurants, anything, it's cash coming in, cash going out. That's it.
Yeah, it's really important to have a strong operator. Like you said, you found someone who can do this one. You help him with maybe other areas that he need help with, like capitals and etc. So That's awesome. I think those are kind of the main questions I had in mind talking with you about. And for first and second generation immigrants and Americans, what busy professions, NOS in general, any last advice that you would like to give on this podcast? Not forever, but on this podcast.
I wish I knew the answers to all these questions you're asking because I would definitely give that advice, but I'd definitely be very rich also. Look, I don't necessarily have advice as much as, look, you've already done the hard work by coming to this awesome country, right? America is the greatest country on the planet. It offers us so much opportunity. So if we've already done the hard work, we've left our homes, like wherever we were born, whichever country we lived in, we've left our homes and we've come to America, which is the greatest country on the planet. Well, when here, we've already done 90% of the hard work. The hard work was getting here to this great, amazing, beautiful country. Now we're here in this beautiful country. We might as well become, take advantage of all the great things this country has to offer. So whether you want to run a business, whether you want to run a charity, whether you want to improve your community, you have to go out and do it. Because if you just sit on your butt and you just, go 9 to 5 work, cool things aren't going to happen, right? So if you want to do great, cool things, you just got to get off your butt and you just got to do them, right? Because there's a lot of things which we just learn by doing. Like, for instance, we can read all the books in the world on how to ride a bike, but if you don't get on a bicycle, it's going to be pretty hard, right? You've already done 90% of the work. We're in the greatest country known in mankind's history. Let's just make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also in Chinese, US is called beautiful country as well. So yeah, it's called 美国. Yeah, 美 means beautiful, 国 means country. So
Say it slowly. What's it called in Mandarin? Say it slowly.
美国. Yeah. Yeah, that's America. May is beautiful and Goa is country. So yeah.
Well, see, there you go. Even everybody in the world calls it a beautiful country. This is hands down the best country on the planet. Okay, I find it so funny when people complain about everything that's wrong in this country, and I think to myself, I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea how bad things can get. This is awesome. You should get up every day and thank the Lord that we're in America and this country offers us so much opportunity.
Yeah, that is a great way to end the podcast as well. Just to know that we live in a beautiful country. Important to cherish every moment and opportunity we have. Thank you so much, Omar. If there's anyone want to learn more about you and your company, what's the best way for them to get in touch or follow you?
Sure, you can go to my mailing list by visiting my website, boardwalkwealth.com. That's BOARD walkwealth.com. The form is right on the homepage. Again, that's boardwalkwealth.com.
Thank you so much, Omar. We'll link it in the show notes as well. Again, Omar, thank you for taking your precious time to be with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Missy. I really appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the American Dream Builder and Investor podcast with me, Missy Liu. We hope you enjoy the tips and tricks that others have used to build their American dream and their trinity of freedom. We would love for you to subscribe and leave a rating and a review. You can also find all the episodes and details on lifemissioncapital.com. Until then, let your life mission go wild.